going to look at a particular calculation for water of crystallization. Now, water of crystallization is the water that's attached to salt crystals as they form, and that forms the hydrated salt. That's the word you need to know, the hydrated salt. So the water of crystallization is the ratio of the water to the dry salt, and it's the ratio of the moles. So for this calculation, we need to be able to work out the moles of water and the moles of dry salt, and we're going to show you how to do that.
Oh, so it's actually a little bit like the empirical formula calculation.
Yes.
So that means we're looking at the formula. It looks quite complicated, don't you, Bourne? And you've got the calcium sulfate. We're going to work out what X is, and that's related to the number of moles of water. So if I use my empirical formula sort of table, that'll make it a lot easier. So
absolutely.
I'll just use that bit of information. So it's calcium sulfate
for just on its own.
On its own. And then you've got the water.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Now in the question, you're going to be given the mass of the hydrated salt. That's the mass with the water attached. They will then heat it to constant mass. Miss McLaren, why do you think they mention this constant mass?
Because if you heat it, water's driven off, but you might not have driven all the water off.
Exactly.
So you have to heat it until the mass is constant, which means all the water of crystallization has been removed.
Perfect. So they then give you the mass of the dry salt, and that is the mass that you need to use
the calcium sulfate
for your calculation.
So I can put that one in now.
So that's 0.889. It's very, very important that you use the mass of dry salt. Now, if you know that the total of this was 1.124, and once you'd removed the water, it weighed 0.889, how, Miss McLaren, would you work out the mass of water removed?
Well, it's easy. I did this calculation earlier.
I thought you might have done.
As per normal. And it would be the original mass, which was 1.124, minus the mass remaining after all the water has been removed, which is 0.889. And that gives you 0.235 grams, and that would actually be attributed to the water.
Lovely. So that can go in there now. So we've got our two masses. We now have to work out the number of moles of each, and we know that moles is the mass divided by the MR. So another little calculation, you need the MR of calcium sulfate. And I'm hoping, Miss McLaren, you did this earlier.
And you guessed right.
Good.
Calcium sulfate, well, the MR is calcium's 40, sulfur's 32, 4 oxygens is 4 times 16, and that gives you a total of 136.
So the moles will be the mass, 0.889, divided by 136. And have you got an answer for that?
I always have an answer for everything here. And we actually worked that out to be 0.0065.
So I can put that in here. So the number of moles of dry salt is 0.0065. And I just want to alert everyone to the fact that it is very easy to get the number of zeros after the decimal point wrong, just writing it down wrong or copying it wrong. So you must be very careful to check that. Okay, what about moles of water, Miss McLaren?
Well, first of all, what we do is we work out the MR of the water.
Lovely.
So the MR of water is 2 hydrogens, 2 times 1, plus the oxygen gives you 16. That's a total of 18. So we worked out the MR. So the number of moles of water in my pre-prepared board would be 0.235 divided by 18, and that gives you 0.0131.
Excellent. So now we have our moles of dry salt and our moles of water. We're trying to work out as a ratio as we did. And if we remember from our empirical formula, what do we do to work out the ratio?
Well, to work out the ratio, it's very straightforward. You look at the numbers and you circle the number which is the smallest one, and you divide each of those numbers by the smallest number. So that divided by itself gives you 1, and that divided by the smallest number, and looking at that, I would say your answer is 2.
2.
So that means the formula is CaSO4 2H2O. Well, Well, I think we've actually worked out that very tricky calculation.
Very easily.
Simple.
Great.